Okay, in this video we're going to maximize some adaptation for that lower leg, that tibial internal rotation at the knee, and our ability to extend and flex the knee with that internal rotation, which is really going to help us strengthen that inside portion of the hamstring as well as the quadricep. So let's get our toe spacers on, and then you're going to put your socks on over the toe spacers. If you have a smooth surface like this, if you're on a carpet, just put a piece of paper under your foot, but it really will be easiest if you have a smooth surface with your socks on. You don't have to worry about thinking about something underneath your foot at the same time. Just takes one extra little piece out of the equation for you. If you have a chair or a stool, you're going to put that kind of close to the wall, but you can maintain some space. And you want to take at least one yoga block to put against the wall, and this is going to help minimize any compensations you have. What we do not want to do is, as we're practicing and improving our ability to turn the lower leg to the inside, we don't want to have the lower leg be pushing out to the side. This is a common compensation when this motion here is restricted, that you'll feel like you're turning in there, but what will actually be happening is the thighs turning to the inside, and that lower leg's going to start shifting out. That is a pattern that we are actually trying to improve when you're walking. So when that thigh starts to pull in, you can't fire that glute and those hip stabilizers. So we want to make sure that we're doing this training as best as possible, limiting that compensation so you can also fire that glute and engage that core system even while doing this training. So we're going to set the yoga block up, so basically at the midfoot. So if I have my ankle underneath my knee here, and I'm going to rotate the foot out, there's enough space for my toes to go in that direction. The yoga block isn't going to block those. And then when I turn my lower leg in, it's not really blocking my heel, but if my foot starts to slide out, I'm going to touch the yoga block, right? So that's going to give me a nice little cue. All right, so if the yoga block is there and you're not touching it, then you're good to go. But if you need it, it's going to help you as a cue moving through the pattern. Now you're going to sit on the edge of your chair, your stool, and you're going to put another yoga block at the base of your thighs here. I want you to make sure you're even on both your sits bones on the chair. You should have even pressure on the back of your hips. Okay? We're going to use a full isometric contraction through the rest of our body to set a foundation. Now, the more you can increase this isometric contraction through the rest of your body, the more you're going to be able to isolate that movement and that training here at the knee. And that's going to help increase your ability to make adaptations in that tissue, not only in opening up motion, but also in training that neurological control over that tissue. So if you have a Pilates ball, you could squeeze that to your chest using that upper back. You could hold onto the seat of the chair if you don't have the arms there to support you. You can also just make fists, okay? So we're going to take a nice deep breath in. As we let the breath out, I want you to think about the rib cage translating down. Draw in underneath that belly button. Get that transverse abdominis engaged. Your shoulders should be stacked over your hips, okay? So now you're going to contract everything else in your body. So pull those shoulder blades to the bra line. Draw in that lower abdominals. Tighten up the back of your hips. Squeeze that yoga block, okay? Now you want your feet to stay kind of relaxed. And we're going to warm up the left knee first by just working on 6 rotations. So we're in neutral here. I want you to start just rotating that lower leg to the outside as far as you can. You're going to kind of touch that end point and then slowly rotate to the inside as far as you can. You don't want to move anything else. Make sure you continue engaging underneath that belly button to support you. You can continue contracting the back of your hips, squeezing that yoga block. trying to maintain that ankle under the knee. Alignment. Go as far as you can. Pause. And let's rotate back. As we get to neutral, that'll be 1 rep, okay? If you need to rest and reset, go ahead. I'm going to move straight into the next repetition. Go all the way out as far as you can. Make sure you're breathing. The goal is smooth, controlled motion. Go as far as you can. Pause, and then start moving back. Okay, that was 2. Let's do 1 more, and then we'll rest and reset our full irradiation, our isometric contraction, just to give our bodies a little rest. We'll be working really hard just for a few minutes. As far as you can. Good. If you get any cramping, just try to keep working through it. Try to tighten up that cramp more. Remind your nervous system that what you're doing is good and it's safe. Sometimes when things are brand new, our bodies will tighten things up to protect them. Okay, we're going to pause. Let's rest. All right, we're going to reset for the next 3. All right, take a breath in. Reset your full isometric contraction. So you should feel the middle back between the shoulder blades of the bra line. Squeeze that yoga block. You should feel the back of your thighs, underneath your belly button. Everything's engaged. Let's rotate that lower leg out as far as we can. Keeping that ankle as under the knee as best we can. Go to that end point. Keep squeezing that yoga block as you turn to the inside. Yep, your movement might be shaky. You might kind of have these kind of uncontrolled little pauses, things like that. You're just going to do the best you can to try not to kind of flop through the motion. You're going to try to control every minute millimeter of it, because that is how you are going to make change happen quickly. And the only reason why you're having those moments of shakiness and kind of stuckness is that your body has not been doing that. It doesn't have control over it. So it's very good to find those places where the movement is so foreign to you, because that's where we can focus change, make adaptations, and it really will transfer into everything else you're doing. Finishing up number 2 here, our second set. Let's move into number 3 for our last one. Good. Squeeze that yoga block to help you isolate that lower leg motion at the knee so that thigh isn't doing any rotating. Good. Get to the end point, pause. Back to the midline. Pause, and then relax. Okay, so we're going to go into the right leg. We'll warm that up and go back and forth just to give us a little bit of rest in between. I'm just going to switch the yoga block to the side for the video purposes. If you are at home, you should turn yourself so that the yoga block is against the wall as well, especially if you know you need it to help you from going all the way out to the side, okay? So just set yourself up, and we're going to shift back and forth as we're working the legs, okay? All right, so let's reset our radiation. Breathe out, contract the upper back to the bra line, contract underneath your shoulder, underneath your belly button so that your shoulders are over your hips. Squeeze that yoga block, tighten the back of your thighs, tighten up your arms. All right, and let's rotate that right side lower leg at the knee. Turning it out as far as we can, keeping That ankle stacked underneath the knee. Rotate to the inside as far as we can, squeezing that yoga block so we don't rotate that thigh. No compensations. Go as far as you can, pause, and reverse it. So now we're moving into number 2. So you just keep the foot soft on the floor so you can slide easily. And really isolate that lower leg motion at the knee. Go as far as you can. Pause. And reverse the motion. Make sure you're breathing. If it feels a little shaky, a little aberrant motion, that's good. Think of it as a good thing that you're finding these motions that should be easy for your body. You had them at one point. Okay, reverse. And now you have the opportunity to correct them in a really deliberate way. Okay, going all the way out for number 3 in our first set. All right, you should start to feel that you can go a tiny bit further each time. Keep that full isometric contraction through the rest of your body so you can really isolate that motion at the knee. Good, go in as far, push it, pause, and then come back to the midline, pause, and rest. Okay? Let's do our second set of 3 here. Take a breath. As you let that breath out, let that ribcage translate down. Draw in that lower abdomen, shoulders stacked over your hips. Squeeze that yoga block. Shoulder blades pinch to the brow line. Okay? And let's rotate that lower leg out. Squeezing that yoga block so we can isolate that motion at the knee and not allow that hip to do any compensating. Good. Rotating to the inside as far as we can. You'll probably notice one side will be slightly easier than the other. That's just very typical. I have a little bit harder time on this right side. Good. If you have a Pilates ball, it can make it a lot easier to help build more radiation. If you squeeze that to your chest, and bringing those shoulder blades down to the brow line, just gives you one more layer of support. As far as you can, pause, reverse the motion. Your inner thigh should be working real hard here. You should feel the back of your hips. That's your whole core system engaging, squeezing that yoga block and trying to stabilize the pressure of your body on each hip, keeping it even. Go as far as you can. Go back to the inside. Working on making that motion as smooth and controlled as possible. Good. Pause and come back to neutral. Pause and relax. All right, we're going to go back to the left leg. You're going to put the yoga block so that it's probably, maybe just in front of the toes or just at the same foot side of the foot fully when your ankle's under your knee. You have space for your heel to slide by, but if your leg is shifting to the outside because you're actually turning the thigh in, you're going to be cued about that so you can correct it, okay? So make sure that yoga block between your thighs, you're squeezing that with everything lined up nicely. Everything's nice and neutral here, and we're only working on that internal rotation at the knee. I'm going to use my Pilates ball to show you how to use that to help you with the irradiation. So the more tools you can use to assist yourself in creating that foundation of isometric contraction through the rest of your body, the better you're going to be able to isolate the motion at the knee and create more adaptation, okay? So we're gonna go work through one at a time. Each repetition is gonna be setting that lower leg in internal rotation, and then we're going to work on first extending the knee out as far as we can with the lower leg turned in, and then slowly moving through knee flexion, maintaining that internal rotation of the lower leg. And you're gonna bend the knee as far as you can, contracting that hamstring as much as you can. So having space underneath the seat of your chair is going to be really important for you, so you have enough space to contract as much as you possibly can, okay? I'm just gonna move the seat to the edge of my chair a little bit more. All right, let's get going. I'm gonna have you take a nice deep breath in. As you let that breath out, contract your upper back. Squeeze those shoulder blades to the brow line. Draw in that lower abdomen, so underneath your belly button. Shoulders are still stacked over your hips. You're not arching back or flexed forward. Squeeze in the back of your hips. Squeeze that yoga block. Now turn the lower leg to the inside at the knee. This is our start position. Don't hold your breath. Okay, so now we're gonna just very slowly try to keep even pressure on both your hips if you can. Start straightening out that knee, maintaining that lower leg turned in. Now make sure you don't start shifting your shoulders backwards over your hips. Look at all this shaking I got going on. This is all that learning. We're going to maximize that as much as we can. You might get a quad cramp. Just squeeze it and keep going. Keep that lower leg turned in as much as you can. And now we're going to start bending that knee back. You might have a little break there in the midpoint, but it's the end ranges that we really need to train. Squeeze that hamstring. Bend that knee as much as possible with that lower leg turned in. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Find that maximum bend point for that knee. Pause. That hamstring starts to cramp, just tighten it back up and just keep going if you can. Now we're going to slide through, come back to our start position, pause, and rest. All right, so let's move on to our second rep. Just for ease, so we're not flipping back and forth, we can just stay on one side. All right, take a breath in. As you let that breath out, set that full isometric contraction. Shoulders stacked over those hips. Squeeze that yoga block, squeeze the back of your hips. Turn that lower leg to the inside. All right, and let's go. We're gonna squeeze that quad to straighten out that knee. Try not to let your shoulders shift back over you want them stacked over your hips. Keep that core engaged. Oh yeah, here comes the work. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Good, pause. Keep that lower leg turned in, smooth, slow controlled motion. It means that you have to have all of these muscles that crisscross the knee, that have control over that knee motion. They all have to participate. That's what you're doing here, is you're not letting anybody get away with not doing their job. Slide through. You can feel how the shake decreases during this mid-range where the ankle starts to get near the knee. And that speaks to that fact that we're stronger in those mid-ranges. It's the end ranges that are the problem. And that's where we can maximize change. Keep that lower leg turned in as you bend that knee as far as you can, squeezing that hamstring. As far and much as you can. Safest and greatest. Pause the end point. Come back to that neutral. Pause, and then relax. All right, let's do one more on this side. Okay, take a breath in. Reset. Full irradiation. Shoulders stacked over the hips. Lower abdomen's drawn in. Shoulder blades to the brow line. Back your hips contracted. Squeeze that yoga block. Let's turn the lower leg in at the knee. Okay. And now let's work on contracting that quad. Straightening out that knee as much as you can. Good. Get as far as you can. If it cramps, tighten that cramp, pause, and let's reverse it. Good. Come through that midpoint, and let's bend the knee as far as we can. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Get that hamstring turning on. Contract, 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 contract. Pull it, pull it, pull it as far as you can. Pause, and then let's go back to neutral. Good. Pause and relax. All right, let's go to the other side. Okay. All right. Just take a second to catch your breath. Should be working really hard, but that's what it's going to take to get control over that motion, reestablishing your ability to allow the lower leg to rotate through its normal range of motion during the gait cycle. So while you're walking in response to the foot and ankle, what's happening there, that is transferring motion, transferring the right activation pattern from the foot up through the hip and pelvis, lower back, okay? And so that dictates your ability to use your core system appropriately. All right, so let's set our full irradiation. Take a nice deep breath in. Shoulder blades to the brow line. Draw in that lower abdomen. Shoulders stacked over your hips. Squeeze that yoga block. Tighten up the back of your hips. Turn that lower leg to the inside as far as you can. Find that end point. Now, start to contract that quad as you straighten out that knee as best you can. Try not to move anything else. You're using your irradiation in order to isolate this work right at that knee joint. Ideally, nothing else is going to be moving. What I'm finding myself is that I've really got to make sure my shoulders don't start shifting back and I keep that lower abdomen, that transverse abdominis engaged. Squeeze that end point, pause, and then reverse the motion. Work on making smooth, controlled motion for every itsy bitsy part. Good. Remember, it's those shaky spots. It's a good sign that we find them so we can correct them. So we're bending that knee, squeeze that hamstring. Make it work. Make it work on the inside. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Bend that knee as far as you can. Bend, 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 bend. If it cramps, it's a good sign. Just try to feed into it. Try not to get out of it. Squeeze. Pause. Let's return to neutral. Good. Pause and relax. All right, 2 more, almost there. All right, let's take a nice deep breath in. Reset that full irradiation. Good. Turn that lower leg to the inside. All right, and now I want you straightening out this knee. You know what you need to do now. Keep checking in on all the little parts. Make sure that you're isolating this motion at the knee as best you can. Contract that quad, contract that quad. Get that knee as straight as possible. Get excited about the shakiness and any cramping, because that means positive change is happening. All right, pause at your end point. Slowly move through that knee bend now. Yep, Now contract that inside hamstring portion. Really make that start turning on, doing its job. Contract, contract, contract. Bend that knee as far as you can with that lower leg turned in. Good. Tighten up any cramping. Give that feedback that you're good. We want this. Come back to that midpoint. Keep that lower leg turned in. And pause. I just caught myself that I was going out to the side. It was a good thing the yoga block was there. It gave me some good feedback that I was actually turning my thighs, which I don't want to be doing. All right, here we go. Last one. Take a breath in. Full irradiation, draw on that lower abdomen, shoulder blades to the bra line, shoulders stacked over your hips. Squeeze the yoga block, tighten up the back of your hips. Now turn that lower leg to the inside. Try to keep yourself even on the back of your hips if you can. All right, tighten up that quad. Straighten out that knee. Contract, make that quad work to straighten out that knee. Keep your core engaged. You got this. We're almost there. I know it's hard, but you're making a really important change here. Get through it. You can do it. Okay, pause the end point. All right. Try to keep that knee lined up. You're not getting any thigh rotation. Squeeze the inside of that hamstring. Pull that lower leg back as far as you can. Tighten, tighten, tighten. Make it work. Make everything do its job. Make sure your shoulders are stacked over your hips. You're not leaning back or forward. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Find that end range as far as you can. Pause. And now reverse it to return to neutral. But maintain that control every little bit. Get back to that ankle under the knee. Pause and relax. All right, good. That's it. If you want to, you can add on a few more reps. If you've decided you moved beyond the point of needing the warm-up in the beginning, you can go straight into the knee flexion extension and just add on 2 or 3 more repetitions to those. Okay?